Okay, thanks for joining again. I hope that we can cover everything that I put into this one. Tonight, the rescheduled broadcast with Bandsaw from Australia will probably happen. Jeez, can never get it right. This is why I keep this here. So, got a couple of topics to talk about. You know, First of all, there is a new article I put out about Farrakhan feminism. I think that you should check it out. It reveals a lot of the violent history of the Nation of Islam. I will put it in the chat, and then later I'll add it to the description. So hold on a second. I'm just going to give you guys, by the way, a chance to check in. I'm going to talk a little about the Secret Service today and why I think that when the media talks about former presidents as not senior citizens, but private citizens. I guess technically most of them are senior citizens. So, they're drinking inshore and eating a lot of prunes and stuff like that. I'm sure. But welcome everybody. So, going to talk a little about that. Going to talk a little about Italy. Maybe a little about Sweden. Maybe. But here's the link. It's about Farrakhan feminism and the progressive stack over there. I'm going to talk also about what real collusion is, because as most of you probably have heard, the House Committee on Investigation of that investigated the Russian collusion, I think it's the House Oversight Committee on Intelligence, they reached a conclusion that there was no collusion that could be tied to a specific crime between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. And it's still going to be a football. And what I see here is a lot of posturing over what exactly, where exactly does the standard get established? Okay, who determines what the collusion is? Okay, also important issue coming on the heels of the Pennsylvania special election, probably more important than the election itself, is the problem that Pennsylvania finds itself in. Just like a lot of states that have been heavy union controlled, they are in a pension crisis. So we're going to talk a bit about that. And I know some people don't give a shit about that, but I think that you guys should start figuring it out, because if we keep seeing these Democrats elected on the congressional level and on the state level, what does that mean for you? It means that your state can run up huge budgets and overpay their employees and run your state into a pension crisis. And then who has to bail them out? The federal government. And who will bail them out? Your spend crazy Congress. Okay, so a lot of people are spinning this victory in Pennsylvania today for that Connor Lamb guy as, oh, it's all about, some people are saying, oh, it's good because he's more of a Trump Republican or Trump Democrat, more union, blue collar or whatever. Some people are spinning that and saying, oh, it's actually bad, and it shows that the working class have rejected the Trump agenda. That's not the point at all. The point here is that you need to rein in spending on both the national and state level. And if you don't do that, then you're basically going to bankrupt your state, meaning that you will have more people who are going to be on their retirement rolls or taking overtime and not actually doing it, doing all sorts of abuses to the state system, and then clocking in on pensions that are exorbitant. And then who has to pay that out? The state taxpayer. And when the state taxpayers don't have enough revenue to balance that budget to pay out those pensions, the federal government is asked to bail it out. That's what happens. that's going to be what the solution in California. They're still passing all sorts of crazy spending bills out there in California and Illinois, by the way. Illinois just became a sanctuary state. So, which topic should we go to first? J-Man Truth Seeker says Peter Sweden is a YouTuber under attack from another YouTuber called Angry Foreigner. Go figure. Pinochet says unions began as a noble cause, but have become an activist machine for the radical left. Yeah, I think the public employee unions, sector unions, are the worst of all. So since we got into that first, I did tell somebody that we would get to the Secret Service stuff. So we'll do the Secret Service after that. Then we'll talk about the issue with Italy, and then we'll wrap it up with talk about the collusion investigation. So we'll spend probably about 10 minutes, hopefully, on the pension crisis. So here we go. More than 7. So this is an archive link because I couldn't keep the. So this is from Penn State University's newspaper, and they're reporting based on the Mercatus Center. It says more than 700,000 active and retired members of Pennsylvania's 2 public sector retirement systems, one of which is available full. Let me just minimize. Gotta see the whole page here. One of which is available to full-time Penn State faculty and staff is in near critical condition and depleting its funds. Without higher contributions from employees and taxpayers, the pension plans could fail to meet their promises within the next 15 years, according to research reported by the Mercatus Center of George Mason University earlier this month. I almost said Mason. The 2 public sector pension systems in this report were the Public Sector Employees Retirement System and the Pennsylvania State Employees Retirement System. So I'm assuming one of them is more for some of the offshoots of the state government, and one of them is for the ones that are located closer to Harrisburg or directly under control of the state. I'd probably wager that the Public Sector Employees Retirement System is the one that Penn State is enrolled in. Full-time Penn State faculty and staff are eligible to enroll in the SERS. State regulations also require that faculty and staff automatically enroll in the SERS if they do not choose another available retirement plan, according to the Penn State Office of Human Resources. The SERS is an agency in Pennsylvania that administers pension plans for public employees and is funded by the state employees enrolled in the program and investment returns. According to the Mercatus Center's report, by 2030, the probability that each plan will be able to meet its promised obligations without additional contributions is 31% for the public school employees retirement system and 16% for Pennsylvania state employees retirement system. It should say public sector. I think it's not. I don't know. Maybe it is public school. They have 2 different names here. Then again, it is a student newspaper, but they're basing it on the George Mason University study. Assets of the 2 pension systems are insufficient to pay for the benefits that have already been earned, said Gary Wagner, a professor of economics at Old Dominion University. This means that there is a high likelihood that either taxpayers will have to contribute more or that current employees and retirees will have to contribute more, Wagner said. The SERS is also the more underfunded of the 2 pension systems, meaning the Commonwealth is going to have to put in more money to close the funding gap or will demand additional contributions, Wagner said. According to Penn State's University Budget Office, there are 18,784 faculty and staff members participating in one of 4 programs that are offered. Of almost 7,000, so 7,000 members of Penn State are SERS members. So the 7,000 employees. The problem is that even though employees are contributing more, it is still underfunded, Wagner said. But Wagner added that underfunding is not going to affect any one group of state employees more than another. Contributions from the state also increased under Act 120, a pension reform that was put into law in 2010, but the Pennsylvania's public pension system is still demanding more of taxpayers to fill in the gap. So that's exactly, it concluded, it said exactly what I was talking about. That happens everywhere, by the way. I know public employees. I've been told to start working. Some people have been suggesting to me, you should get a public sector job. And my answer to that is good luck getting what you've put into it, because you guys have done the most you can, public employees, to bankrupting the government. And in fact, this article, which came from May 1st, so that was this month, comes on the heels of this one by the American Spectator that says government unions kill pension reform in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's public pension liability is one of the worst in the nation, and it's going to stay that way at least until next year, because lawmakers bent to the will of the state's public sector unions and killed a measure that would have overhauled the system. A bill to create 401k style hybrid defined contribution and benefit plans for future hires in the public school employees retirement system. So it was public schools, it wasn't public sector. And state employees retirement system failed to gain enough votes in the. So 2 years ago, they had the chance to put in a bill that would have made it easier for people in Pennsylvania to fund those retirement systems. They didn't do it. The union said no. Despite the measure not affecting current employees, it was a bridge too far for government employee unions and the lawmakers who support them. Okay, and by the way, I think it's it's debatable. It is debatable whether public employee unions should exist, but what they're doing here is they're actually using their political power to just force the government to tax everybody else so that they can earn more money. It is a lobbying effort, just like every other lobbying effort. What they like to say is that they're representing a real sector of the economy and people, and they do have they do have kind of a point there. But the difference is that the public employees, they're not the ones that fuel the economy. They're the ones who they actually live off of the economy. You don't get economic growth from a very big public sector, despite what either Paul Krugman or most of these other economists say. When you balloon the public sector, what you really get is a lot of waste and a lot of inefficiency because of laws that prevent firings and affirmative action, and their generous vacation time and other benefits that they get that you just don't get in the private sector. So it's just not as efficient. Union officials did not return multiple requests for comment, but Jerry Alexiak, president of the Pennsylvania State Education Association, so that's their teacher union, wrote in a Penn Live op-ed that the pension reform bill would drive away young teachers in the state already facing a teacher shortage. That's actually what he's saying there is a blatant lie. I get it that it might not be very lucrative to be a teacher, but there's a surplus of people with teaching certificates that are in the market. Okay, so it's not like they're not looking for jobs. If the benefits are not as good, they'll still look for the job. So his point should be that it could deter people from seeking a career in education, but to say that it forces it actually makes the teaching shortage worse is wrong, because there is no teaching shortage. There's actually a massive surplus of people with teaching degrees on the market right now who can't find jobs. And maybe I kind of feel sorry for them, but not as much. So this is the deception of unions. This is why unions in the United States are nowhere near to being the resource that they are in Japan or in South Korea or in other countries where they look for the welfare of the company that they're working for as well, not just for their own self-interest. That's what unions do. They're basically a lobbying arm for themselves, and their employees might make some good money, but in many cases they're also pawns. So that's it about the pensions. What do we say would be next? So I had a small rant last night about President Obama and former First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, and I said that they're not private citizens. A lot of people say, stop chasing after them. Stop blaming all of our country's problems on these people. They're private citizens now. Well, some of you might have not noticed this, but in 2013, Obama restored lifetime Secret Service for former presidents. Under a new law signed today by President Obama, all former U.S. presidents and first ladies will receive lifetime Secret Service protection. That the measure also authorizes protection for the children of former presidents until they are 16 years old. In 1994, as a cost saving, so that's not as bad, in my opinion, in his case, because I think both of his kids are over the age of 16. So it's not incredibly unreasonable what he said, what he did. If we have an exceptionally young president later who might have a 4-year-old kid, and they get out of office when the kid's 12, so that's 4 years. It's not like that's the worst. That's the worst provision of the bill. In 1994, as a cost-saving measure, Congress acted to limit protection for future former presidents and spouses to just 10 years after they left office. The 1994 measure exempted then President Bill Clinton. So when it was written, they made sure that Bill Clinton would be exempted, but whoever came after him, and they thought it would be Al Gore, would would basically have to take that. So 18 years later, Congress reconsidered. The world has changed dramatically since the 9/11 terrorist attacks, said Representative Lamar Smith, Republican of Texas, during House debate on the bill in November. So that the Republicans cooperated with this. This is why both parties are just complete crap. They don't actually look at the real implications of this. We must make sure that the safety and security of our former chief executives is not just jeopardized. Well, this is where I ask the question: who gives a shit? Who cares? By the way, and I sent this broadcast to Gary Byrne, who I've had on the show. I hope he's doing well. I want to hear his response to this. Hopefully, he'll make a video of his own about that, about what constitutes a private citizen in his mind, because this is a person who was part of the Secret Service, had to help secure the person and surroundings of VIPs. How is it that you can call these people private citizens when they have government-funded security details? Both President Obama and former President Clinton too, and former First Lady Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama and the Bushes and whoever else is alive. I think Bush Sr. is alive. Who cares if these people are under threat? They're all super rich. All of them are super rich. I think Jimmy Carter is probably the least rich president that's still alive. And nobody wants to kill him because he's over 90 years old. Honestly, what's the point? So, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a private citizen once you've been president or you've been first lady. In Hillary Clinton's case, she ran for president twice. She was a senator. She was Secretary of State. She continues to go on these bizarre tours all around the world, talking to the international community of douchebags that still want to hear her talk about how nothing is her fault. And all of us who defied her are the most intolerant swine in existence. And we have to foot the bill for that, because apparently this private citizen is entitled to protection for the rest of her life. Look, a lot of these people, they could afford their own security details. In my opinion, the bill should be like this. It should say that, for these people, they can get possibly, maybe a contribution of 15% from the government towards a security detail and licenses for that security detail to carry, their guns and other protective equipment wherever they go or whatever, but not Secret Service agents. They basically, they hire their own staff. That's it. None of this crap about, President Bush Sr., who can barely keep his mouth closed. And sorry for all of you that might be fans of Bush Sr., but the man is not exactly a high risk target anymore. Why does he need a Secret Service detail? The man is very rich. I get it that some of you might like him. I don't, but honestly, it doesn't make a difference. There's all these presidents have, they have the means to pay for the protection. I think Carter probably could too. He has that nonprofit center, the Carter Center. They could probably, finagle some sort of sweet deal where the Carter Center pays for his security. I mean, the Clinton Center gets all these sweet deals for all sorts of other crap. Let's see here. Got Alex Davis here. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Aren't you from England or something? They also push the myth of how underpaid teachers are. It's diabolical. Well, I don't think that they're underpaid, but I don't think that they're paid well. I think that they're actually paid above. See, I'm going to get in trouble with the teachers that I do know, but I've never been a real school guy. So I don't like, I'll just put it out there. I've never been a good friend of teachers or their interests, not when I was a kid and not now. I've always been more of a, I've always thought that people should, if they want to learn something and they can't teach themselves, then it might be that they'll never really get a hold of it. The teacher is important because they have to provide the resources. But if the student isn't motivated, then it's just not going to work. Can teachers motivate the kids? Probably. Can parents motivate the kids? I'd say much more so. J-Man says, I mean, is there any question why we're importing everyone from overseas to do all our jobs when we're stifling people's development at their most important years, while imprisoning them in target zones to take away gun rights? I promise you, teachers are overpaid. Everyone I know that teaches either gambles away their money or drinks it away. Well, you would. I mean, you work in a school. I always hated being in schools. I think if I would have been in school any longer, I would have developed an alcohol problem. Pinochet says, yes, me and the wife have decided to pull our youngest daughter out of public school. The damage being done is unacceptable. I'd like to hear about that sometime if you're willing to go on air about that. So yes, the idea that they're private citizens, these former politicians, is ridiculous. Hillary Clinton, she left the State Department in 2012, did all this crap before the election, where she went around and pretended that she's not running for election. It's the biggest fraud ever that these people aren't private citizens. Now that she's not running for president anymore. She's going on these book tours. And apparently Huma Abedin went with her to India, which is it's very strange that Huma Abedin, whose husband was convicted of basically soliciting sexual images from a minor, she's still touring around the globe with Hillary Clinton. They don't have any shame. If this happened to any Republican candidate, and I'm not a Republican, everybody knows I'm not a fan of the Republican Party, but I do know that the press has a double standard when it comes to them. This would not be acceptable. Huma Abedin going to India with Hillary Clinton, enjoying the same security detail as her. No, there's no justification for it. If these people are private citizens, then they should be paying for their own protection and also for the travel. Remember, you have to pay for the travel accommodations for these people. I've read books already by not just Byrne, who I've talked to, but by Ronald Kessler, Dan Emmett, who was he was a Presidential Protective Division officer, and he was on the what was it called? The counter assault team, the CAT, which is, they're a very well-trained combat force to protect the president. They go with him everywhere he goes. So no, there's no counter assault team that goes wherever Hillary Clinton goes, but there's certainly an entourage, and you've all seen those pictures of those vans and everything. So no, I think that there's really a serious problem with keeping this Secret Service detail. And President Obama, he's just making it worse. He did make it worse in 2013. My hope is that at some point Congress does cancel this. President Trump should, if he has integrity, he should say publicly, I'm not going to need Secret Service after I'm done. I can hire plenty of goons to look after me. Not calling the Secret Service goons, but Trump would probably hire a bunch of goons. Just saying. So I think that's it. Any questions about the Secret Service? Hillary the Muff Diver. You don't know. How can you assume that? I'm not sure all women who are of that persuasion believe that. That's Alex Davis said that. Anyone interested in the decline and corruption in the Western education system should check out Alicia Clegg on YouTube. I will. Maybe you could put a link if possible. I don't know if it'll let you put a link, but yeah, I put all messages are visible, so hopefully you'll be able to do that. Next on the agenda. So we did Secret Service. We did the pension system. We're going to talk a little about collusion. What is collusion? Well, I'm going to talk to you a little about what would be collusion and what's not. So first, what's not collusion? What happened in 2016? There's no evidence. Here's a report from ABC in New Orleans. ABC News New Orleans, coming off of the CNN wire. So I'm sorry, but I didn't get a archived link for this, but it's a local affiliate, so it's not as bad. The House Intelligence Committee plans to vote March 22nd on a final version of its report on the committee's Russia investigation. Representative Mike Conaway told CNN Wednesday, although that report is still being revised. Conaway, a Texas Republican leading the House's Russia probe, said the committee will vote on sending the Republican drafted report to the intelligence community for declassification, and he was open to voting on sending a Democratic document for declassification too. So he's already anticipating the, an alternate report, the minority report. If anybody's seen that movie, it's great. It's with Tom Cruise. The committee's time frame gives Democrats just over a week to negotiate with their Republican counterparts on the contents of the 150-page draft report, which Republicans shared with Democrats on Tuesday. While Democrats are at odds with the key findings laid out in the Republican report, Conaway said that he was still hopeful they would sign on to some of what the Republicans had written, such as how Russia meddled in the election. The report is still being edited, and there was a new version of the document Wednesday, according to a senior committee official. After the committee votes next week, it's not clear how long the declassification process will take before any reports are made public. So that's going to suck. So we'll just have to wait for that. Likely with redactions, Conaway said the committee also planned to vote to allow all House members to view the classified versions of the reports, just as the panel did for its Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act memos. The Republican report concludes there was no evidence of collusion between Donald Trump's team and Russia, and it also says there wasn't evidence to support the intelligence community's assessment that Russian President Vladimir Putin tried to help elect Trump. Some Republicans on the committee have backed away from the notion Russia wasn't helping Trump. Representative Trey Gowdy of South Carolina said Tuesday it was clear based on evidence Russia had disdain for Senator Secretary Clinton and was motivated in whole or in part by a desire to harm her president candidacy or undermine her presidency had she prevailed. And Conaway said whether one concludes the Russian effort was designed to help Trump get elected is a glass half empty, glass half full, glass half empty thing. Representative Adam Schiff of California, that's this guy, says Intelligence Committee Democrats are planning to write their own so before they even write the report, they're planning to write their own report, their own long-form report laying out what they found and what hasn't been investigated. And he said Tuesday there was, quote, significant evidence of collusion between Trump's team and Russia. So there was a press conference, which I can't show you on live stream because it won't work. You won't get audio. Where these douchebags, they went on. They said, "Oh, there is evidence. There is evidence, or whatever." Well, if there is evidence, then how come you didn't leak it like all the other stuff that you leaked? That should be the real question there. Pinochet says, "I don't do links. What am I, Bill Gates? What does that even mean?" So you want me to look up this Alicia Clegg? Let's see here. On YouTube, seems here that she hates. Second. Yeah, I see this. This is interesting. I think I'd like to interview her one day. If you know what, Pinochet, if you could be if you could be my John Kerry, I'd like to send you as an emissary to ask Ms. Clegg if she could please bless us with her presence on this network, and we could talk a bit about that. And that would be very good. You know, if you can't provide links, you can. I know you can ship post on her live streams. I know you can do comments or email. So that's an assignment for the future, and I have every confidence that you'll be able to do it, because as you made all those people disappear in South America in the 80s, you can make guests appear on this show. So, thank you in advance, and I look forward to seeing the results of it. So that's about it for that part of this, and we're going to talk a little about Andrew McCabe in a second. But I hope some of you read the New York Post. If at least sometimes some of their news is retarded, but they definitely include some stuff from Peter Schweitzer here, who is the guy who wrote Clinton Cash, and you can see that. So the New York Times best-selling author of Clinton Cash, he talks here about this private equity firm run by Kerry and Biden's kids. So he says, my frustration is not that the solid reporting on Trump has been too tough, but that the reporting on the Obama administration has been way too soft, or in some cases non-existent. The author of the 2016 sensation, Clinton Cash, says Trump and his children didn't invent the blurring of government and business, and details a number of ethical violations on both sides of the political aisle. One example, the little-noticed private equity firm run by the sons of Democrats Joe Biden and John Kerry, as detailed in this exclusive first excerpt. Joe Biden and John Kerry have been pillars of the Washington establishment for more than 30 years. Biden is one of the most popular politicians in our nation's capital. His demeanor, sense of humor, and even his friendly gaffes have allowed him to form close relationships with both Democrats and Republicans. His public image is built around his lunch bucket Joe persona, which I think is pretty fake, by the way. As he reminds the American people on regular occasions, he has little wealth to show for his career, despite having reached the vice presidency. One of his closest political allies in Washington is former Senator and former Secretary of State John Kerry. Lunch bucket Joe, he ain't. Kerry is more patrician than earthy, but the two men became close while serving for several decades together in the U.S. Senate. The two often talked on matters of foreign policy, says Jules Whitcover in his Biden biography. So their sons going into business in June 2009 was not exactly a bolt out of the blue. Now, I should clarify here. So this is John Kerry, or this Biden and his son Hunter Biden, and I should clarify, it's actually Kerry's stepson, not his son. Hunter Biden, Vice President Joe Biden's youngest son, had gone through a series of jobs since graduating from Yale Law School in 1996, including the hedge fund business. By the summer of 2009, the 39-year-old Hunter joined forces with the son of another powerful figure in American politics, Chris Hines. Senator John Hines of Pennsylvania had died. Okay, so John Hines of Pennsylvania, he was a Republican, died tragically in 1991 when Chris was 18. Chris, his brothers, and his mother inherited a large chunk of the family's vast ketchup fortune. That's Heinz Ketchup, for those of you that can't connect the dots, but including a network of investment funds in the Pennsylvania estate, among other properties. In May 1995, his mother, Teresa, married Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. Remember Teresa Heinz Kerry? I remember her when she was running for president. I think she's Portuguese. So I remember her running for president, and she had the weirdest, like, most villainous accent. It was just bizarre. It would have been very, very strange having her as first lady 4 years. But John Kerry was an idiot, so he did lose that election to George Bush. That same year, Chris graduated. By the way, that was the first election I could have voted in, and I didn't vote because they were just both, between Kerry and Bush, both members of the Yale Skull and Bone Society, and then virtually nothing to draw you into the voting booth. I'm surprised anybody voted in that election. That same year, Chris graduated from Yale and then went to get his MBA from Harvard Business School, so similar to George Bush. Joining them in the Rosemont venture was Devin Archer, a longtime Heinz and Kerry friend. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a sort of a connection to one of those secret societies at Yale, by the way. Joining them in the Rosemont venture was Devin Archer, a longtime Heinz and Kerry friend. The three friends established a series of related LLCs. Those are limited liability corporations, by the way. They're kind of more of a limited. Those are like those businesses where I don't think you can sue the owner or something, but it might be a little more complicated than that. The trunk of the tree was Rosemont Capital, the alternative investment fund of the Heinz family office. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to take this call, so everybody hang on. I'm back. So, no, I'm not worse than Lionel because at least I turn off the volume. I turn off the volume and I turn off the camera. So I'm not, yes, I was getting that thought that I was pulling a Lionel here, but no, this is no way to run a circus. Well, what we have more is a rodeo here, buddy. So let's get back to the article. I apologize profusely to my esteemed audience for my rudeness, but that was an important call concerning something I needed have to follow up on. Not related to anything I do on YouTube, but the various deals. So the partners attached several branches to the Rosemont Capital trunk, including Rosemont Seneca Partners LLC, Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, and Rosemont Realty. Of the various deals in which these Rosemont elites were involved, one of the largest and most troubling concerns was Rosemont Seneca Partners. Rather than set up shop in New York City, the financial capital of the world, Rosemont Seneca released. So here we go. I'll show you my nifty highlighter here. So let's see here. How come it's not doing it? Yesterday it did work, but whatever. So they occupied an all-brick building on Wisconsin Avenue, the main thoroughfare of exclusive Georgetown. Their offices would be less than a mile from John and Teresa Kerry's 23-room Georgetown mansion. And so Georgetown, yeah, that's a really Tony neighborhood in D.C. and just 2 miles from both Joe Biden's office in the White House and his residence at the Naval Observatory. And then you can see this, but that comes later. Over the next 7 years, as both Joe Biden and John Kerry negotiated sensitive and high-stakes deals with foreign governments, Roosevelt entities secured a series of exclusive deals, often with those same foreign governments. Some of the deals they secured may remain hidden. These Roosevelt entities are, after all, within a private equity firm and as such are not required to report or disclose their financial dealings publicly. Some of their transactions are nevertheless traceable by investigating world capital markets. A troubling pattern emerges from this research, showing how profitable deals were struck with foreign governments on the heels of crucial diplomatic missions carried out by their powerful fathers. That's Biden and Kerry. So one of them was Secretary of State, the other one was Vice President. Often those foreign entities gained favorable policy actions from the United States government, just as the sons were securing favorable financial deals from those same entities. Nowhere is that more true than in their commercial dealings with Chinese government-backed enterprises. Again, China. The real collusion is with China. That's what I always say. Nothing against Chinese people, but China is more of a threat than Russia. Roosevelt Seneca joined forces in doing business in China with another politically connected consultancy called Thornton Group. The Massachusetts-based firm is headed by James Bulger, the nephew of the notorious mob hitman James Whitey Bulger. Whitey was the leader of the Winter Hill Gang, part of the South Boston Mafia. Under indictment for 19 murders, he disappeared. He was later arrested, tried, and convicted. James Bulger, so this is also known. I've actually read a book about this. James Bulger's father, Whitey's younger brother, Billy Bulger, served on the board of directors of the Thornton Group. He was the longtime leader of the Massachusetts State Senate. I knew about that. And with their long overlap by state and by party, a political ally of Massachusetts Senator John Kerry. Less than a year after opening Roosevelt Seneca's doors, Hunter Biden and Devon Archer were in China, having secured access at the highest levels. Thornton Group's account of the meeting on their Chinese language website was telling. Chinese executives extended their warm welcome to the Thornton Group with its U.S. partner, Roosevelt Seneca Chairman Hunter Biden, second son of the now U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. The purpose of the two meetings was to explore the possibility of commercial cooperation and opportunity. Curiously, details about the meeting do not appear on their English language website. Also, according to the Thornton Group, the three Americans met with the largest and most powerful government fund leaders in China, even though Roosevelt was both new and small. So that's a good question. How is it that more established hedge fund managers, and I think there's a private equity fund, so I'm not sure if they're the same thing. I'm not a finance and investment expert, but how is it that this fresh new firm that was opened right after Biden became president suddenly gets access to these higher ups in China? The timing of this meeting was also curious. It occurred just hours before Hunter Biden's father, the vice president, met with Chinese President Hu in Washington as part of the Nuclear Security Summit. There was also a second known meeting with many of the same Chinese financial titans in Taiwan in May 2011. For a small firm like Roosevelt Seneca with no track record, there was an impressive level of access to China's largest financial players. And it was just 2 weeks after Joe Biden had opened up the U.S.-China strategic dialogue with Chinese officials in Washington. One of the first days of December 2013, Hunter Biden was jetting across the Pacific Ocean aboard Air Force Two with his father and daughter Finnegan. The vice president was heading to Asia on an extended official trip. Tensions in the region were on the rise. The American delegation was visiting Japan, China, and South Korea, but it was the visit to China that had the most potential to generate conflict and controversy. The Obama administration had instituted the Asia pivot in its international strategy. That was under Hillary Clinton, by the way, shifting attention away from Europe and towards Asia, where China was flexing its muscles. For Hunter Biden, the trip coincided with a major deal that Roosevelt Seneca was striking with the state-owned Bank of China. From his perspective, the timing couldn't have been better. Vice President Biden, Hunter Biden, and Finnegan arrived to a red carpet and a delegation of Chinese officials. Greeted by Chinese children carrying flowers, the delegation was then whisked to a meeting with Vice President Li Yuan Shao and talks with President Xi Jinping. Hunter and Finnegan Biden joined the vice president for tea with U.S. Ambassador Gary Locke at the Lu Guan Tea House in the Dongcheng district in Beijing, where Hunter Biden spent the rest of his time on the trip remains largely a mystery. There are actually more reports of his daughter Finnegan's activities than his. What was not reported was the deal that Hunter was securing. Rosamond Seneca Partners had been negotiating an exclusive deal with Chinese officials, which they signed approximately 10 days after Hunter visited China with his father. The most powerful financial institution in China, the government's Bank of China, was setting up a joint venture with Rosamond Seneca. So the Bank of China is an enormously powerful financial institution, but the Bank of China is very different from the Bank of America. The Bank of China is government owned, which means that its role as a bank blurs into its role as a tool of government. The Bank of China provides capital for China's economic statecraft, as scholar James Riley puts it. Bank loans and deals often occur within the context of a government goal. Rosamond Seneca and the Bank of China created a $1 billion investment fund called Bohai Harvest RST, a name that reflected what was involved. Bohai is the innermost Gulf of the Yellow Sea, was a reference to the Chinese stake in the company. The RS referred to Rosamond Seneca. The T was Thornton. The fund enjoyed an unusual and special status in China. BHR touted its unique Sino-U.S. shareholding structure, that means Chinese-American, and the global resources and network that allowed it to secure investment opportunities. Funds were backed by the Chinese government. In short, the Chinese government was literally funding a business that it co-owned along with the sons of two of America's most powerful decision makers. Now, let me reiterate. By 2013, okay, I don't know if you guys want me to keep reading here, but by 2013, when this is all happening, John Kerry is Secretary of State. So it's both Biden and Kerry are involved in this. The partnership between American princelings and the Chinese government was just the beginning. The actual investment deals that this partnership made were even more problematic. Many of them would have serious national security implications for the United States. In 2015, BHR joined forces with the automotive subsidiary of the Chinese state-owned military aviation contractor, Aviation Industry Corporation of China, AVIC, to buy American dual-use parts manufacturer Henniges. So essentially what we're talking about here is the same thing I was talking about in my Real Collusion series. It's just a repeat. It's a total repeat. Back then, you had the Clinton administration selling for campaign donations, basically a lot of secrets to China, allowing companies to go there and work on their missile technology and everything like that. I still think I have some links to that in the description. So check it out. Yeah, the real collusion is between the Democrats and China here. King Kush is here. He says Arcadia, city of China, Chinese mistress of the rich. What? China only pick China developer if I walk around in Arcadia. What is he talking about? Okay, so Alex says, please keep reading. I'll keep reading if you guys want. But the article is in the description if you want to go check it out later. There was one other story I wanted to get to, but there's not much left, so we'll keep going. AVIC is a major military contractor in China. It operates under the direct control of the State Council and produces a wide array of fighter and bomber aircraft, transports, and drones, primarily designed to compete with the United States. The company also has a long history of stealing Western technology and applying it to military systems. The year before BHR joined with AVIC, the Wall Street Journal reported that the aviation company had stolen technologies related to the U.S. F-35 stealth fighter and incorporated them in their own stealth fighter, the J-31. AVIC has also been accused of stealing U.S. drone systems and using them to produce their own. In September 2015, when AVIC bought 51% of American precision parts manufacturer Henniges, the other 49% was purchased by Biden and Kerry-linked BHR. Henniges is recognized as a world leader in anti-vibration technologies in the automotive industry and for its precise state-of-the-art manufacturing capabilities. Anti-vibration technologies are considered dual use because they can have a military application, according to both the State Department and Department of Commerce. The technology is also, so I find that a little surprising because, I think that, vibration engineering and limiting vibration is actually, yeah, it could be dual use, but you need vibration limiting in literally every piece of machinery. They teach us that, I think, in junior year mechanical engineering. So, but this is a military application here. The technology is also on the restricted commerce control list used by the federal government to limit the exports of certain technologies. For that reason, the Henniges deal would require the approval of the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which reviews sensitive business transactions that may have a national security implication. According to BHR internal documents, the Henniges deal included arduous and oftentimes challenging negotiations. The CFI-US survey in 2015 included representatives from numerous government agencies, including John Kerry's State Department. So this could be a rehash of the same problems as in uranium-1. Basically, their excuse will be, well, we needed multiple government agencies to sign off on that. But that's the whole problem, that all of the government agencies are neglecting their duty to prevent stuff like this from happening. That's what happened with uranium-1. That's what happened here. When you're talking about high-tech military industries like what AVIC bought, Henniges, yeah, that's actually somewhere where these people think that this should be under control of the government. Fine, then how come the government? It's the same thing, the same argument that they talk about with gun control, where the FBI should be able to know if threats are made. Well, now if a threat is made and the FBI does not report it to local police and doesn't follow up on it, then your whole premise that the FBI should be able to know doesn't matter, because it doesn't follow up and do anything with the notice of the threat, right? So the same thing here. They should have not signed off on it, but they did. The same thing with uranium-1. So this is more of the same. It shows that Hillary Clinton is not unique in the U.S. Government for doing stuff like this. The Republican Party did virtually nothing to stop it. That's what we have here. It's a disgrace. Is this Arcadia in Beverly Hills? It's called the Beverly Hills of the Chinese. It's a city in LA County. Okay, Arcadia, California then. I heard something about them being connected to the Masonic Temple. Okay, it's northeast of downtown Los Angeles. Well, maybe do a little tour of it, and just like Pinochet had a assignment, yet an assignment. King Kush, please take a camcorder over there, an old style camcorder. Go to Arcadia and do a little snooping for us. I'm sure you'll bring out a lot of stuff. Well, if you want me to follow up on it, please send me some more stuff, because I can't talk about that for the moment. So I don't think we'll talk about Italy today. Last thing we're talking about: FBI officials recommend former number 2 at FBI Andrew McCabe be fired. This is from CBS News. FBI officials have recommended that the former number 2 of the FBI Andrew McCabe be fired. CBS News' Paul Reed reports Attorney General Jeff Sessions is reviewing the recommendation. If Sessions goes along with the recommendation, McCabe could lose at least part of his pension. The report by the Department of Justice Inspector General, while not yet finished, found evidence that McCabe had questionable contact with a reporter and was not fully forthcoming when asked about it in an investigation concerning the Clinton Foundation. Those familiar with McCabe's side of the story say he was authorized to talk to reporters. McCabe, through someone in touch with him, has no comment on the recommendation. The Department of Justice asked for a response, said that it had no personnel announcements, but released a statement saying it follows a prescribed process by which an employee may be terminated. That process includes recommendations from career employees, and no termination decision is final until the conclusion of that process. The Justice Department's Inspector General is expected to criticize McCabe as part of its investigation into the handling of the Clinton email investigation. The Associated Press reported earlier this month that criticism of McCabe was expected to be in connection with a media disclosure and a question of whether proper procedures were followed in the release of the information. So if this is proven to be a full-on leak, then yeah, I think he could actually be prosecuted in the future. The problem is, how do we find out whether he was authorized by Comey or somebody else at the higher level of the FBI, higher levels of the FBI to do it? Now, if it was publicly said that he wasn't authorized, who knows? Pinochet says, and King Kush is killed by the triads. Thanks, Bull. There's video news articles on YouTube. Well, look, I can't look it up while we're talking about other stuff that takes precedence. Maybe one day we'll talk about it, and then we'll send the video to Mark Dice, and we'll see if he's interested, because I actually like his take on topics like that, even though some people call him a wacko. Mark Dice, I think, is pretty awesome. I'd like to hear what you guys think of him. So yeah, the FBI, their officials are in hot water. This is going to get only worse for them. But we have to keep talking about it and revealing it. So we went through a lot today. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around and your comments and for waiting while I was on the phone with somebody. And that's it. So have a great rest of your day. Please comment, share the video, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. That's not, you guys are probably all subscribed already, I know, but anybody watching later, please subscribe. Take it easy.